Hello and welcome to this collaboration tutorial where we're going to learn how to render this animation using Blender, and then we're going to export it and render it remotely on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Let's get stuck in. For the purpose of our tutorial, I'm actually going to use a cross-platform rendering because I'm going to start using my MacBook Pro from 2017, which is, as you can imagine, a bit slow. But then when I essentially going to set up the whole scene, get it ready, I'm going to use a couple of plugins, and then I'm going to actually use cloud infrastructure virtual machine to render it all. So yeah, let's get going. So this is my Blender scene. I'm gonna delete everything from there. Make sure that you install your widget. The link is in the video description. Make sure that you install the input outdraw plugin. That's done by Toby Lobster. Great job. It works like a dream. Check it on the GitHub page. It has all the information I require, as well as step-by-step guide, which is quite important because there is the element of the import process that requires your attention with regards to actually adding parts library to tell Blender, the information about the Legos and so on. So let's go back to our render. What I'm going to click on is I'm going to click on File, I'm going to click on Import, and now that my plugin is installed, I can see outdraw option on it. So let's go and quickly click on that. So as you can see, the new window is open. I'm just going to navigate to my folder where I have all the assets. And there it is. In my downloads folder I have my first of all I have my Lego model, and then the most important thing is that I also know where's my outdraw folder stored. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy path to that folder, pardon me, and then I'm gonna import my file. So yeah, I'm actually gonna use everything else as a standard. You can obviously change some of the settings here, but I'll let you explore it on your own. Okay, so now I'm gonna click import. And now that I have my parts library allocated correctly and my model selected, I can see now that the assets are present in my scene. So it actually I'm actually going to delete the default plane, and by default also it creates a word properties that I'm also gonna delete as well. So there it is, our model that is imported in Blender now. I can see there's a lot of cool things and nodes, and every component seems to be looking fine. See, I can check it from different angles. It's it all renders pretty well, to be fair. The materials and all the information about them is looking pretty good. I'm super happy with that one the first time I saw it. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add our plane, the floor plane. So to do that, I'm gonna click Add Mesh and Plane. I'm gonna press S and then increase it by 30. So that's my floor plane now. It's that the part's gonna kind of sit on and interact with. So quick kind of solution to making that plane actually useful for our scene is that we're going to open the physics properties, and within the physics properties we're going to add the rigid body. What we're going to do is we can actually change the rigid body type to passive, because we don't want it to follow down and be responsive to the law of gravity. We just want it to sit still, and then when anything sort of comes in contact with it, we want for it to bounce things off, which is fine. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move it to new collection. I'm going to call it N for environment. I'm going to click out of that. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to actually using my collection with my scene, I'm going to show all stuff inside. I want to see all of the nodes of everything, of all the components that are within my model, because essentially I need to add a rigid body to that as well. And I know that some of the nodes are coming through with some positional plane nodes like that, and essentially that can on Mac especially affect the fact that the physics not going to be added to all of your objects. So what I want to do is I want to actually scroll all the way down and select all of those by clicking on the bottom one and shift, and then in the object area I'm going to go to rigid body section and I'm going to click on add active. It's going to think for a few minutes. It's going to say that there's few errors because there's a couple of non-mesh objects like the positional nodes, so essentially it can add rigid body to something that doesn't have a mesh. So let's give it a test. So I'm hoping it's all just going to go flying everywhere at the moment, and it kind of does. It all collides with each other and it just creates this massive kind of explosion element. So so it looks like it's coming together. And the next thing that I want to actually do is I want to be in control of how these things fall apart. And then to do that, then there's actually a quite neat little tool thing that we can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my env collection and click add, and within that I'm going to add empty arrow plane, and then I'm going to add a force field, and I'm going to add wind force field. I'm going to move that wind force field to my empty collection, empty plane, and now I actually have a force in it. So because I didn't really kind of follow exact gravity sort of measures and mass measures as well, we do follow up on it, and it essentially is going to be probably needing over indexing and some strength. So if I, for example, do 1000 strength, let's see what that gives me as a wind force. So what I'm after is this kind of going up and down type of effect. So hopefully if I press play now, it's going to start thinking about it, and yeah, there is the element of it, but I guess it's not exactly how I wanted it yet. So I think I'm going to actually increase it to 8000 at the start. So let's see what that gives me. Hopefully it all goes up and away. Perfect. So this is a great start. So what I actually want to do now is make all the objects kind of fall down and naturally on the plane. So I'm going to essentially add keyframes where at the initial frame 0, we're going to have a lot of strength, but then it's going to fizzle out, allowing everything to kind of fall down nicely on the plane itself. So I'm going to insert the keyframe at the 0 frame, and then probably, let's say around 60, I'm going to reduce that to 0 and insert a keyframe here. So let's have a look. So let's see. It goes all the way up, yep, as we wanted, and then my wind essentially stops to all the way to 0, and then everything falls nicely either on the plane or off the plane with a little bit of bounce and a little bit of this cool little effect, which I'm actually quite happy with that, how it looks like. It's pretty basic, but still there's something pretty cool about, doing this kind of stuff with all the Legos. So the next thing I am going to do is make sure that we have some sort of a camera added to the scene itself. So I am gonna add a camera now. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm gonna try to kind of pan out what sort of shot I want. What shall we go for? Probably something maybe like that. It should be okay. Maybe we will play with it a little bit later, but at this stage, let's see what we have. So we have everything obviously going off. My wind stops and objects will be falling right in front of my camera like that, and bouncing and interacting with each other, and eventually collapsing down. Cool. So the next thing I am going to do now is to probably have a look around my word settings. So because I removed my word properties, I'm going to create a new scene here, and I am going to just default to a sky texture setting here, because it's just a bit faster. But yeah, you could, I guess, upload your HDRs and create procedural sky and what have you, to make it even more interesting. I'm going to go sunset effect. Let's see what if I bring that sound elevation to 1.2. I have this nice kind of sun rays. Maybe I'm gonna increase it to 5. 3. See what 3 gives us. Yeah, it has this kind of yellowy feel to it. I'm not gonna be bothered with that too much. I am gonna add some properties to my plane as well, but I am just gonna make it a little bit less shiny, more rough, and kind of going for the darker color. Which is fine. obviously you can upload materials and make it, you know, look much nicer.
Okay, so we're going to install Windows and Blender on OCI, but on a GPU instance. If you've ever tried to use Blender and rendered a complex scene using your laptop, you'll know it takes several hours, and you can do it considerably quicker using a GPU machine. So it's well worth a try. So the first thing you want to be able to do is log into your OCI cloud account. I'm going to assume that you've got a cloud account already. If you navigate on the menu, you'll see on the left-hand side of the Marketplace. So just go to the top menu, scroll down, click Marketplace, and then you'll see a list of available images from Oracle and third parties. I'll just do a quick search for Windows. There are two on here that I can use for NVIDIA, the GPU. One is Server 2016 and one is Server 2019. I'm going to use 2019. There's a few details on here just of which version numbers and some overview of the GPU itself. Also some usage instructions which are quite useful. So I can actually launch the instance from this page. So I'll just go back to the top. Just accept the terms and conditions, make sure I've got them in the right compartment, click Launch Instance. Now I'll give it a meaningful name, something memorable. I know that my GPU is in 82. Just ensure that you're using the right image and the GPU shape was already selected there, so I'm using 2.1. My networking, I've already got one created, so I'm just going to use that, but obviously you can create them here, or you might use your own pre-existing. I'm going to use a public IP address, but I'm going to show you how to whitelist your laptop. So I'm going to just add my SSH key. I'm going to paste mine. You can create one, generate one on the fly here, or you can upload or paste from your own machine. So I'm just going to choose one on my machine. Just choose that one. Okay, so if I need to alter the boot volume, I can change the sizes here. I'm not going to, but here's the options. If you need to, I'm just going to take them as they are. I'll just scroll back and just check that I've typed everything in correctly. I'm using all the right networks. Always worth a double check, although it's pretty quick. Click Create, and you'll see the box goes orange that it's creating, and when it's finished it will go green. It's actually really quick. I've speeded it up a little here, but once we've got the networking configured, you'll get the IP addresses appear on the right hand side. You'll also get a password generated for your Windows machine, so I always just copy both of those, put them somewhere I can remember. And we'll need the IP address and the username for remote desktop. So here I'm going to go into the VCN to whitelist my laptop. So what I do is I've already got my IP address from what's my IP. So I'll just go down into the subnet, choose the security list on the public subnet, and I'm going to add the ports for RDP, which is 3389 for the standard port. And I'm just going to add a rule which I'll show you how to do. If you want to use VNC, then you can open the ports for VNC as well, do the same there. So what we just do is just go back, create a new rule, add an ingress rule, put the IP address in of your laptop, use a /32, which keeps it a single machine, which you'll need to change if your IP changes, put the port 3389 and give it a description. I'm not going to add one because I've already got one here, but you can see how to do that. So that's mine done. I'm now going to open Microsoft RDP to access my machine. I'm just going to make sure my machine is running. Don't need to do this necessarily, but it just gives me my IP address on the front here. So yep, and you can see how big the machine is, 12 CPUs and 72 gig of RAM. So I'm going to create a new PC, add my IP address. OPC is a user account, the password that you've just copied off the front page. Connect. The first time it will ask you to change the password, which is a little bit of a challenge with the clipboard. So if you've got a complex password, it can get quite interesting. I'm just going to run Windows updates here just to get some of the first updates done. Clearly I've speeded this up. I'm then going to install Blender from blender.org, which again is really quick when you speed it up. Just choose all the defaults, change them if you need to. And again, you can go and change some of the NVIDIA settings if you need to. There's a number of tools available there. So once Blender is open, we just set it up for the first time with our preferences. Just open it up, have a bit of a play around with the mesh. Maybe try and see how the mouse works here. I'm using a Mac on a Windows machine, so it gets quite challenging with the mouse. But delete that one, just go and add a new mesh, so everything works, all the simple stuff works as you would expect. So now I just need to go and edit my preferences and make sure the GPU is configured. So once I've finished playing, we'll click Edit, Preferences, and go to the System Settings, and just CUDA, and just I presume that's how you pronounce it, and just ensure that the GPU is enabled there. And that is done.
So we created our models, and the next step is going to be all about taking it to the cloud, and using the remote machine. So in order to do that, what I'm going to have to do is save my model locally and then expose that folder to my virtual machine. So I just copied my Lego file, it copied instantly. I can see now that I'm running it on my remote server. But yeah, it's picking up all my settings, so thank you, Stuart, for setting it up correctly. So now I actually have also this scene that is being rendered real time. It flies up and once it falls down, it bounces, and it all works fantastic. I tried earlier to use the my local conversion, but that was very, very slow. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna bake all the rigid into the scene the same way. It's just that now I am actually using my cloud CPU to process it. So remember last time it took absolute ages and it actually crashed. So now by clicking to bake to keyframes, I'm hoping it's gonna take very little to no time. Again, the kind of UI is not very helpful because it doesn't really give you any indication whether it actually is happening or not. But let's wait and see. So now that we have finished our remote operation, which is about converting the rigid body into the keyframes, we can actually go back and start manipulating the scene even further. So what I'm gonna do next is manipulate a little bit of our time frame, add a few scenes and few more frames, and then essentially I'm gonna start rendering through. So let's just give it a quick test to see if it's still working. Yeah, so it seems to be working fine. As you can see now in my dope sheet, I can see all of the keyframes, and if we actually expand that, we can see all of the components there. So now that we have everything ready, what I want to do is to move our scene so it starts a little bit later than what we originally had. So to do that, I'm gonna click on all of the keyframes. I'm gonna click A, and then move everything up by a couple of frames up the top. So now when I press play, for the first 40 frames, nothing is actually happening. And then at my frame 40, the whole animation and all the calculations are kicking in. Perfect. The reason why I wanted to do that is that when we actually, if we want to add any effects onto our camera, then this is how it's we can start to move and perhaps, you know, add few shots at the beginning. So my initial camera location is set to what I set it up earlier to because I don't have a keyboard that is obviously there is a bit of an issue with the transition from Mac platform to Windows. So my keyboard, like I actually have a Magic Keyboard and some of the keys are not working. So I just quickly mapped it using the key map feature. So I want to see my camera when I click this, actually comma, and that way I can actually create you know, any kind of animations I want to build in. So what I want to go for is I want for the camera to actually give me a little bit of I guess a bit of playing with focal length is what we after. So this is where I want to end up to. So I'm going to set it up as a keyframe, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add probably a bit of a zoom, and then so essentially I want for it to kind of land at the frame 50. But what I want for it to be, it's probably maybe let's go for this out in kind of effect. So let's see how that works. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Obviously we can add any kind of movement of the camera. We can, you know, attach camera to different components. We can attach camera as to do a bit more of a panning shots of this. But I think for the purpose of what I want it to be, I'm gonna keep it as it is like that. And what I want to do next is to finish up some of my render settings. So I already have everything set to leverage my CUDA, GPU, and all the things that go with that. I do want to push it a little bit. I'm going to use the GPU compute, but I'm going to set actually my render sampling to 2000. I might do another video where I would probably use something like a Lux render or some other you know, outputs, but let's take it at one step at a time. I'm going to switch adaptive sampling, and then I'm going to put a denoiser. I'm just going to go for the optics. Cool. So then I am going to set it up as 7000 by 5000 resolution. I want that video to be yeah, a good quality. and then I'm gonna actually increase my end frames to 290 because we added a 40 frames at the top. Change the frame rate to 30, and then I'm gonna set up my render folder for the video render, and this is essentially where I want to save it to. And then I'm gonna set it up as a FFmpeg, and then I'm gonna set the MPEG-4 container, and then let's go for high quality setting, and yeah, so happy with that. One thing I'm gonna probably change is I am gonna add a bit of the color management. I'm gonna go to standard, and look, I'm gonna go with medium contrast. Perfect. So my scene is now ready to render. So I think that's it. Let's see what this animation is gonna look like.